Hello everybody and welcome to Sports Vehicle Performance, and today we're doing a very nice buyer's guide and everything you need to know about these Porsche 911 SCs. Well, these Porsche 911 SCs are brilliant little cars using a 3-litre flat 6 engine, producing around 180 to 200 horsepower in the later generation. They are really good cars, galvanised bodywork as well, but the one critical thing to mention here is at one point these cars were cheap. You could quite easily pick up a 911 SC for well under 10 grand, even 5 grand as well. So a lot of people that couldn't afford to look after these cars got their hands on them, and unfortunately there can be some big sort of mistakes made to bodywork, panels, repairs not done correctly. So the big critical thing that we're going to be covering first is bodywork. Make sure you go all over the car. So we're going to start off with that now. So starting off at the front of the car, these headlight surrounds here, these are really common in the front arches as a whole as well. So these bits can get a lot of corrosion underneath here as well, where paint can start to go. And if we open up the front as well, quickly, get it there. You see this section here where the bonnet latch is. These sections, I'm not sure if you can see that here, but underneath the plastic cover, these can sometimes get bent out of place quite easily. Water can seep in and sit around and weaken this material a bit. So just got to be careful of that. Make sure you give it a good look over. Also in these top corners, where the arch actually joins the main section, these sort of seals can go and basically get a lot of water in between, and the water can seep in and cause damage into these little bits just inside the body shell. You can actually see where some of the cables for like the fuel filler, these kind of start to corrode, and you can get holes in them. They can cause problems for you as well. So give a good look around, make sure you're having a look. Also on the doors even, see these little metal sort of rims that cover the window section. They have little holes in, and sometimes they can chip the paint, and when the paint chips, water can obviously find its way in, corrosion, and that can begin and start to happen. And even the case of the engine cover latch. So this will go in, and again, same with the fuel filler one, all the lines, all the cables, where these go through, these can get holes in and start to corrode through. So just another thing to keep your eye out on. Just look for corrosion staining, a bit like water staining here, where it goes orange. This is a good little telltale sign that water's been able to get into places. But of course, rear arches, good look around in the back. Another thing to mention is this can actually go as well. This has recently had a new one, luckily, but this is one thing to definitely look at when you're looking at buying one. But yeah, rear arches, this back section as well, up in the top. So underneath, this whole section here can get a lot of water damage, especially in these top corners there and there, where they actually join into the panel of the body. So again, good look around, look for any sort of water staining. Of course, when it joins the main section here, you can get a lot of water seeping in, any sort of paint chips that can happen, especially all in these side arches pieces, all the way around. So just, properly make sure you look over the car, really get deep in. As I said, with these headlight surrounds, if you find one bit somewhere, there's chances there's more. And, as I said, these cars were cheap. There can be cover-ups of old bodywork repair, so you've really got to make sure you look as hard as you possibly can. Even like these plastic covers, they might not look that bad, but until you start looking underneath, eventually you might find a weak spot somewhere. It can cost you a lot of money to replace arches and stuff like this on these cars, especially nowadays with the prices going up and up and up. And of course, paint work comes into that as well. So yeah, just make sure you're really looking over it. You don't want to spend money on something that you missed in the past. Well, moving on to the engine now. As mentioned, these produce around 180, 200 horsepower, and they are actually a really strong engine. The only problem is, with the early ones, is they didn't have hydraulic chain tensioners. So this is a mod that is basically a must-need mod for these engines. Most of them would have been done. I mean, as I said, these cars were picked up relatively cheap, so some people did miss out on stuff like this. But to be honest, moving into nowadays with how the car's been going price-wise, a lot of engines would have been taken out, stuff would have been done. So a lot of these problems may not be there anymore, but I'm going to stress the service history side, check invoices, make sure engine work has been done and carried out properly by a reputable place. Because, for example, head studs, they're really common to go, especially on the early cars again as well. So, just make sure they've been done. Most likely, again, would have been changed by now, but you've also got to make sure they're getting done up with proper service intervals. They can come loose, so that's another thing. injector seals, you can get vacuum leaks. This can cause your car to misfire and stuff like that. And big problems with your fueling. Also, the airboxes on these, they had a big problem when they would backfire, and they would basically cause your airbox to practically explode. So there's a mod for these now, which basically allows it to basically misfire, and it won't damage your actual airbox of your engine. So that's good. But yeah, there's not too much. We'll cover a bit more underneath just to cover the oil leaks, because there's a few areas that I want to go over, just to show you the more common areas of the engine. But yeah, really, they're not too bad. Just got to make sure that you've got the right service history and make sure you're checking it over. As said, hopefully most of it would have been done, and it's something for you not to worry about. So before moving on with the engine and gearbox a bit more, I'm going to go ahead and tell you about the wheels and the brakes on this car. So the brakes aren't too bad, they don't wear too excessively, pretty much normal for any sort of road going car. The only problem to be careful of is calipers, because they're old fashioned. They can seize up, get a bit of brake judder sometimes as well. So just look for uneven pad wear, and also especially on the rear with the handbrake cables, these can lock up, and also the shoes can get stuck quite easily. We've seen this before in a few cars, so just something to keep in mind. Make sure you don't hear or feel any sort of locking of the brake caliper when driving along, or the brakes don't stick on as well when driving quite hard and aggressively. Wheels is another big thing on these cars. For example, Fuchs wheels are obviously quite desirable, especially in the right size. So there are a lot of fakes and replicas out there that people try and put onto their cars. The only problem with these is they are noticeably weaker, so these can obviously take damage a lot less. Damage to the wheel can cause a lot of problems, especially hit a curb or something, for example. Not that you want to do that anyway, but over a pothole, for example, these wheels are considerably a lot less stronger than proper Fuchs wheels. So be really careful. Just look for maybe paint peeling, and obviously the chrome coming up as well. That's a good sign to tell. So finishing off with the engine now, oil leaks, that is the big thing with these. Expensive oil leaks as well, to be honest. So for example, if your crankcase is leaking through this section here where it joins, that can be quite an expensive job to put right, because that is of course a whole engine rebuild. So that is the one big one I would look out for. But other than that, you're more looking at main seals, obviously leaking from the engine drain here. You can also get leaks where the chains are, the chain housing leaks there, and the really common one, which is of course cam cover gaskets. But to be honest, these are changed quite regularly with certain service intervals, as you have to get your tappets adjusted. So that's another thing to look out for when buying one of these. On startup, if you hear a bit of a tapping, it could be your tappets need adjusting. These are, as I already mentioned, adjustable tappets, unlike the later cars, which have hydraulic ones. So you don't have to worry about on them, and these ones you do. So when you get it serviced every few years, you'll have your cam covers come off, check your tappets are correct, set correctly, and then also you'll do your head studs as well, is also recommended, so you can check that these are tight, and of course you can then find if certain ones have also cracked as well, but you'll usually get signs of like an exhaust blow if that is the case. But other than that, oil tanks are usually pretty good. Don't really get too much signs. You might get a slight leak from the drain on it, but the pipes is another thing to look out for, especially the one that goes underneath the gearbox here. It's quite a long pipe. A lot of them don't get changed for quite a long time, unless say it's had a rebuild recently. So these go usually on the fittings to the engine, these sort of sections here. And of course, as I said, the silicone pipes, these tend to seep just a bit around the hose clip areas. I'm not sure if you can see that there, but it's not actually seeping, but just sort of areas to look out for in general. But yeah, oil leak's the big one. A tiny little oil leak, to be honest, isn't much to worry about. It's what these kind of engines are like, unless of course recently it's had a really expensive engine rebuild. At that point I would be slightly concerned if there was oil seeping. But if not, if it's been sat around for a while, a bit of oil probably isn't too much to worry about, just in the few critical areas, as mentioned, like your crankcase and your main seal. These can be quite big jobs, as it is, unfortunately, engine out and gearbox off, and all that sort of stripping case scenario. So yeah, just a few things to look out for. So moving on to the transmission, this is a 915 gearbox. They are all right, they do have a few little weak spots. They are probably the weaker of this sort of era of air-cooled engines, air-cooled gearboxes, sorry. They wouldn't take much over 300 horsepower, so if you are looking at modifying one of these cars, definitely go for the later G50 box, much stronger much more capable, or even the turbo gearboxes as well. So yeah, you more than likely would get a worn synchro in second and third with these, especially if pushing more power. So again, just something to look out for when we're taking on a test drive. Make sure it goes quite smoothly into gearbox, but they are actually really fun to drive, a lot lighter than the later models. So a lot of people do prefer these. I'm one of those people. I definitely prefer the 915 gearbox to the later ones. These feel a lot lighter and, to be honest, a lot smoother when driven at certain speeds. But yeah, something to look out for. Also, the manual clutch cable. This is something that can cause clutch judder and sort of excessive wear as well if it's not adjusted correctly. So just keep an eye on that as well. You know, again, when using the clutch in the car on your test drive, just make sure it feels all good, all nice and working as should. Not too common for gearbox leaks, but this little plate here, I'm not sure if you can see this, this is right at the bottom. So if there's probably going to be anywhere to leak, it's either here or into the gearbox with these where the drive shafts go in. So, you know, these seals can go, not too common, but just, again, another sign to look out for. If you've got a gearbox or a leak, it will most likely be one of these three areas, I would probably suggest. And also the throttle cable, which is here, this is attached to your gearbox. Just check this for sort of any sort of movement. So yes, make sure you check this for any excessive wear and that all your throttle cables are working as should. These can get knocked quite easily when driving in the road. So obviously it's been knocked open. You might not even be getting full throttle at certain points, or you might have your throttle open too much, especially if this has been bent or potentially damaged in any sort of way. So just something to look out for. And gearbox mounts, these can perish, obviously with the age of the car. This has actually got PowerFlex bushes in, I believe, so really good upgrade. Keeps everything nice and structural and really strong and close together. So to be honest, quite a recommended upgrade from me, I would say. Standard gearbox mounts can perish quite easily, especially with all the movement in the back of this area. But yeah, not too much. I would definitely, you know, I love these 915 gearboxes, much more to the later ones, but yeah. So moving on to the suspension of the car. Now, this, I would just say you've got to pretty much make sure every single bush is in relatively good condition. The old standard bushes, obviously with the age of the car, anything could be gone, especially considering mileage and how it's been driven, where it's been driven. So just go check over. This car has actually had PowerFlex bushes fitted all around. It's quite a common thing that we do here to these air-cooled cars, because it's just, you have a nice peace of mind that every single bush in the car has been changed, and also for a better quality poly bush, which is much stronger and also just stiffens the car up a bit. There are different options with that. Some people don't like it too stiff, so you can go for different types of PowerFlex bushes. But yeah, definitely recommended. You know, such as your anti-roll bar bushes can go. These front sections on your lower arms can go. And then moving into the back as well, your rear arms, where they're attached up here, you know, into the torsion bar section, these can go quite easily, and drop links as well. So yeah, you just got to make sure you're checking it all over and making sure that everything is in good condition and not perished or splitting. Next up, we're going to talk dampers. So most of these would have been changed by now. As you can see, this one has Bilsteins on. The original dampers, you know, were pretty much known for leaking, but as said, with the age of the car nowadays, most, if not every single one, would have either been uprated or fitted with newer, better quality dampers. So that's always good. Just, you know, good little check over, make sure they're not old, not degraded, and yeah, look worn or showing signs of leaking. Next up, the torsion bars. So these can be obviously adjustable. So if you come out here a second, you look up here, this is the cover for the bar, and this is obviously a few bits of adjustment here and further in the car, just in here, what you can't see because it's hidden behind the wheel. But basically these can obviously sit at different heights, especially if someone's been fiddling with it. As said, when these cars were cheap, people would potentially try and do some of the work themselves. So you could see a car sitting slightly uneven and bits like this, especially on the rear, or really high or really low. You know, because people don't necessarily know what they're doing. You have to be quite cautious with these, to make sure they're set correctly. You have to use special tools sometimes, just to make sure that they're both at the perfect and level height. They're not the easiest to do, but as said, some people have given it a go, so just make sure the car looks nice, level and even, especially with all the bits in the back. So yeah, just be careful and make sure you're looking over what you're buying. So we're now going to take a look at the interior pieces, but we're going to start off in the front actually. So for example, these carpets, a lot of them sometimes have been fitted poorly with either aftermarket ones, or even the standard ones can obviously degrade over time. A lot of the time you can see these little buttons here which actually hold the carpet on. these can sort of split apart, open up and not be repaired, and it basically causes your carpet to fit really poorly. So yeah, if you're in, if that's what you want, just something to look out for when looking at the carpets, because they are really common to sort of fall apart or miss buttons, and then it doesn't look correct and doesn't look factory either. Also the fuse cover, can also fall apart quite easily. This one's actually relatively new, but these can crack and break up, and then you can get bits of plastic all over the front of your car, in the boot of your car, sorry, so just something to look out for. And also in this, especially with it being right-hand drive, the brake reservoir is up here, so if there's any sort of leaks or anything down to the pedal box, it will come out all into the front of your boot. So again, just maybe look out for wet marks, something like that. It can take paint off, obviously it's brake fluid, so just make sure you give that a quick look over when looking underneath as well. So yeah, but now I'm going to move on to the inside of the car. So inside of the car then, the first thing is look for cracked dashboards. To be honest, these are actually relatively good, but obviously you get the odd few which have cracked dashboards, so just something to look out for when inspecting car. Of course, all the way down here as well, all these bits can also crack, with a lot of it being plastic. We're going to look at the gauges, so sensors can go down, or the gauges can play up. You might get an odd one on your gearbox, which causes your tacho to play up, your speedo as well. Clock is really common. Most of these cars will have a clock not working 100% correctly, either out of time, and when you try and set it, it still just doesn't seem to stay in the right position. Oil sensors as well, oil pressure, really important sensor to make sure you've got, especially on one of these. So these can go down quite commonly. It's all mostly to do with age. If you've got service history of stuff being done, that's always a good sign. The seat bolsters, so these areas of the seats, depends on which ones you've got. These ones are actually in really good condition. So yeah, these can break up, especially this sort of like fabric material and the leather. These can sort of fade out and start to break up as well. And this plastic panel, if you look in the middle, it's quite fragile. So this is your plastic panel, holds your stuff, your handbrake, bits like this. This can break up and crack quite easily. Again, that is mostly due to age, breaking apart. Floor carpets all over here, especially, foot marks where people have been driving on the driver's side. You can obviously break up the part of the carpet and degrade it. A lot of them will probably have aftermarket carpets or either some sort of cover. Maybe that's something to look into if that's what you want. Into the roof now, you can see the headliner sometimes dips. This one again is really in good condition, especially with sunroofs as well. That's something to look out for. But all of this can obviously start to break apart. You can get sort of wear marks where it sort of goes a different colour. The colour sort of starts to dissipate and not as good as it used to. And also with these as well, these can go ahead and degrade, especially from the sun, depending on what colours you've got inside the car. And into the doors now, window switches. So the window is quite an old-fashioned mechanism. It's got a little bar with a rubber seal in which your window sits in. These rubber seals can go quite tight, go quite hard as well, and eventually your window will try and go down or up, and it can just pop out quite easily. So another thing to make sure your windows are operating, and sometimes the seals in these as well also dry up. They can catch your window and basically cause your window to pop out of the regulator. So yeah, as mentioned, make sure that these are all nice and lubricated. Even a bit of WD would definitely help out with that remark, in that regard, sorry. So yeah, definitely look into that. And yeah, do want to cover the glass as well quickly if you come outside with me. So I'll come around that side. So the glass on these cars, some of them can be fitted with aftermarket glass, which is obviously less desirable. So you've got a few marks in your cars. All of these should realistically match up with all of them around the car. You've got one there, you've got one here as well. So you can see all the marks to tell that it's genuine glass. And I think you've even got one, in this corner here. So just things to look out for if you're looking for genuine glass. That is, keeps a lot of the cost in the car. So yeah, just a few little things to look out for inside the car and even parts of the exterior like the front and the windows. Well, there we have it. The 911 SC really is the sweet spot between the early cars and the later, more refined cars as well. I think it's got a really classic and raw edge to it and really brings it out in the era of the air-cooled 911s. But yeah, just a few things to look out for. Obviously, as I already mentioned, probably about 1 million times in this video, these cars were once cheap. So just make sure you give it a proper look over. And if in doubt, you can take it to a specialist like ourselves to have a thorough check over and pre-purchase inspection to make sure you are buying the car that you really, really want. But other than that, really hope you've enjoyed, and don't forget to like, subscribe and comment, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.